Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. This is the fourth video in the series of building a global war army, and in this video I'm going to show you how I built my Commonwealth army. The Commonwealth is 3 nations, so let's just pick up the camera here. Okay, so it's Anzac here, and it's the FEC, which is capital as in Calcutta. And then, in the back over there, it's the UK, of course. That's the capital of the UK. Like if the UK goes down, then these guys go down. Okay? And I'm not going to get into the rules of all that. That's not what we're here for today. What we're here for today is to take a look at how to build your army. And this is this video might take a little longer than most of them because I do have the extra units to go through. Like there's the Anzac. Not too much though. I'm not going to spend too much time going through the Anzac armies. I don't think that you need to, because they're much the same as the British armies, and you get them in the same place almost exclusively. So let's just take a look here. You start out the way we started everything. You go to the sail bin. Here, let's see, like you click on this one, you go to the sail bin, right? You always check that first. I check that even when I'm not shopping, just when I'm bored. You know, just, ooh, they got these on sale, you know. And so anyway, like if you needed extra British guys, there they are. They're 5 cents each. You probably got lots of them though, like if you've been playing Axis and Allies for years. And I assume that you have been, because you don't just jump right into global war. I mean, you gotta play Axis and Allies for years. Otherwise, you'll just be lost when you play this game. So anyway, you're gonna come here to Battle Pieces Allies Complete Set. And you can see that it's on sale, like everything in here, and so it's $5 off. So for $8, you can buy one of these sets. Now I would recommend buying 2 of them. Let's see if the tan is in. Look at that, the tan is even in stock right now. So that's great. When I bought it, I think I had to buy blonde, and now they're gone. But blonde, I had to paint them because it's not the color that the Axis and Allies pieces come in. So you take a look at these things, and the reason you buy 2 of them, like I said, is because you get a lot of the things that you're going to need in there that you don't get in an Axis and Allies game. Like up here, these are the escort carriers, the small carriers. Now you don't really need any battleships, but they're going to give them to you anyway. And you're going to get these are airborne infantry. So if you buy 2 sets, you're going to get 8 airborne infantry. All you need is 5, and so you can give a couple to Anzac, and you can give France some, because they're exactly the same sculpt, right? But that's all, of course, that's only if you're going to be painting your pieces. And if you're not, then I don't know, maybe, like, I never tried it the other way, so maybe it's better off just getting 1 of these and buying 5 of these and 5 of these and 5 of these. I don't know. Like, you're just going to have to work it out. You're going to have to just crunch the numbers and see how it works for you. For me, it works because I paint my pieces, right? So here, I'm trying to get that back there. I screwed up. There we go. Okay, but like you get a lot of the pieces in here that you're going to need, like I said. So here we've got medium bombers, and those do not come in Axis and Allies. Here you've got your transport planes, and here's some tactical bombers, although you probably already have those. It's nice to have a couple of different kinds, right? You got the Mosquito bomber that comes with the Global 40 game, and then you've got these bombers here. And you've got a couple of different kinds of fighters here, so that'll add to the fighters that you already have. There's the motorized infantry that you need. They're Mack trucks. You got the torpedo boat destroyers here. You've got the light tanks, and you've got self-propelled artillery there. So if you were to buy 2 sets, then you would get 4 tank destroyers, 4 of the light tanks, and 4 of these. And then I don't think you need any more of those. It depends. Like you play your game, see what happens, see how many of those you need. I know those were on sale for the longest time. You could have bought them dirt cheap. So I've got lots of them. Like if you bought 2 sets of this stuff here, then you could just buy 1 set of 5 of these light tanks. or maybe just don't buy any and see if you need more, right? Maybe you don't, maybe you don't use a lot of light tanks, but that's up to you, right? You just got to see what's happening and how your game plays out. And I can't tell you definitively for sure anyway, because I haven't played this game yet. Like I could say, okay, for Axis and Allies, I would probably use all this stuff, right? But I don't know for sure with this game. And then you look over here, where are we here? So if you don't have all the Axis and Allies pieces you've got, then they've got all the Axis and Allies pieces that you need. And then there's the Anzac pieces. I got to tell you, when I bought Global 40, like when I bought Pacific 40, I bought the first edition. And so it didn't come with all the pieces you needed. Like you didn't get the cool guy with the cowboy hat. You got just a stock infantry, and you didn't get anti-aircraft guns, and all the pieces were exactly the same as the British. They were just in gray plastic instead of tan plastic. So over the last year and a half, I've been buying a little bit here and there. Like I think the last thing I bought a bunch of these things here. I don't think I've got any of these bombers yet, but the pieces are different in this one than they are in the other one. I don't know if I bought any fighters. I bought a few of these things because in the first edition, like I said, it comes with different pieces than what you see here, and that actually works out in my favor here when I need more than one type of mechanized infantry, for instance. So let's just get rid of the computer here. I think there's only one other place you're going to need to go there, other than going to you can look in, it depends on what kind of pieces you want. You can look in the section with the 3D printed battle pieces, right? So let's zoom in here. And there's a lot to go through here. I'll just pan across there. So you have the Anzac way down there and everything, and the FEC. Now the FEC and the UK, you're going to use the same pieces, so you don't have to worry about like I'm not going to go through them all twice. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about having a separate box for the FEC. I find that this box is really crowded, where I keep my UK pieces in. So for the FEC, all you need is infantry. I keep my FEC infantry and a couple of the other pieces. The technology pieces I keep in the Anzac box, because the Anzac box doesn't have very many pieces in it at all. So anyway, let's get started. We'll start with the infantry class like we did with all the other units. So I have a ton of custom infantry for the British. Lots of different, like probably 3 or 4, I guess if you count the Gurkhas over there that I'm using for the FEC, probably 4 or 5 different boxes of custom infantry. Like most of my custom infantry I'm not even using, and I've traded a bunch of them over the years, or over the last year or so. So anyway, lots of custom infantry, and those will be I will be using for regular infantry. And then the out-of-box Axis and Allies piece, he will be the militia, and he's glued down to his chip, just like all the other nations. This is the way I've done my militia. And the mountain infantry, I'm going with the mountain infantry from the Global the Global 1936, Global War 1936 base set of units, and there's a bunch of units, and that's one of them. So he's the mountain infantry, and I've glued him to a mountain chip. As with the other Marines in the game, I'm using the World War I, and this is the British sculpt from 1914. And there was actually a British chip that says Royal Marines on it, and it had a nice little picture on there too, but I really wanted to glue them down. So and it was all the same chip. I'll show you something in a second, but I didn't mind gluing this down. It's rather than buying the white marine chips that you might have seen for the other pieces, this one is just kind of a specialized one for this guy, kind of like the Special Navy Landing Force was for the Japanese. And then I showed you those airborne pieces a minute ago. I just glued them onto an airborne chip. And you don't really need to. I'm doing it, I kind of like the way it looks. And I envision playing with people who are not experts at this game. So for them to try to decipher what all the different pieces are, it would be easier if they could just read. Like I could say, regular infantry doesn't have a chip, and everybody else has a chip, so you'll know what they are. Now these things here, this is unique to the British. This is the commando, and so the reason the base is painted red is because I was using him for my special forces unit in Axis and Allies, and I will still do that. But I've got that scalp extra, right? So I'm going to use him. And I've got the commando chips as well because of that. I'm not going to glue him down on that though, because that's not what I've done with my Axis and Allies pieces. And I still will be using him for Axis and Allies. These pieces here, I will never use them for the Axis and Allies game. And that's why I don't mind gluing them down onto the chips. So I was telling you in the other videos how each nation has something different, right? Something that is unique with their infantry. The Germans had the Volksturm, the Russians had the Guards, and the Japanese had the veterans. With these guys, what they have, the UK, is, well, I should call them the Commonwealth because it's not just the UK. What they have is colonial infantry. And what colonial infantry is, like normally if you put one of these guys on, you have to put him on where you have a factory. Here we go. You have to put them on where you have a factory, right? But if you can purchase for the UK one colonial infantry, and you can put him on a place that doesn't have a factory, a British place that doesn't have a factory, but it has to have a point value. Like here, you see this territory here, this isn't worth any. There's no red number in here, but up here there's, well, not red number, but the red box with the white number in it. So this territory is worth something. This territory isn't worth something. So you can put a colonial infantry here, but not one here. So there you go. You can put the colonial infantry there. You don't need a factory. And he moves and does everything that a regular infantry does. And what these guys are, like these would be guys that were from Nubia, if that's how you pronounce that, or from South Africa, or from Egypt. Depends on what territory you're putting them in. Those are guys that were born and raised and lived their whole life in Egypt, but they've joined the British Army because the Commonwealth, like they've been around for at this point, like it's kind of different now. They're kind of divesting themselves, and they have been since World War II. Their empire is in decline, but before that, that was probably the height of the British Empire, or close to it. And so they were firmly entrenched in countries all over the world. Their culture was, like we speak English, I'm speaking English right now. Obviously, our country's been colonized by Britain at one point in time, right? So that's what it is. These are colonial infantry. In Canada would be the same thing. You could put colonial infantry up in Canada as long as there's a point value in that territory. So that's what that is. And also with the FEC, so on the Pacific side of the board, you could do the same thing. You could put a colonial infantry as long as it has a point value. Like here, Malay down here, you could put that down there, and you could put one of these guys on there. So FEC can build one of them per turn, and the UK can build one of them per turn. Anzac doesn't get these though. It's just the UK and the FEC that get those. So is that everybody? Yep, that's all the infantry. So that's your infantry class. So let's move on to the motorized and the mechanized units. So we have our motorized, and he does have tires on him. I'm not cheating. It was just the German one that I had to cheat on. I'm getting a bit of a glare there, aren't I? So this is a Mack truck. I'm using these for both the Americans and the British. And you get two of these in those sets that I was showing you earlier. So if you buy two sets, that's 4 of them. And then you buy a pack of 5, that's 9 of them. That's plenty, probably. And this thing here, this is the mechanized infantry that came in the first edition of Pacific 40 or Europe 40. I bought the second edition Europe and the first edition Pacific. So I've got both of those mechanized units. They were different in each one. So this one here is the M3 M5 half track. And the Americans have this one as well. So this would be the regular mechanized infantry. And then if you develop the advanced mechanized infantry, then you'll use this one, or I will be using this one. This is from the second edition. So this would be, I would have got this one from the Europe game, and I would have got this one from the Pacific game. And this is a priest mechanized infantry. So that's what I'm doing with those. And I'll just show you the Anzac, because all of the stuff is the same for Anzac except for this thing here. This came in the second edition. Like, I had to buy second edition ones as well. So I have this one for the Anzac as well. But this is the Kangaroo mechanized infantry. And so he will be for if the Commonwealth develop advanced mechanized infantry. I'm not going to go through all the Anzac sculpts. Like I said, most of them are the same as these ones, and you get them in the same place. So, and I will go through the ones that you don't. Okay, so on the next part here, we're going to go into the artillery class. Now, right here, I'm not a big fan of this sculpt here. It's the howitzer. It's so bland as far as I'm concerned. And these two here, like this would have been first edition, Axis and Allies, the 40 series, whether it was Pacific or Europe, and this would have been the second edition. This is a 25-pounder artillery, and so is this. This is the historical board gaming version of the 25-pounder, and you can see they're slightly different sculpts, right? So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to forget about this. Since I have 3 of them, I'm going to forget about that. Normally, like what I could have done was use this for the regular artillery and then use the 25-pounder for the heavy artillery. But I'm just going to use this one for the regular artillery, the Axis and Allies piece. And I'm going to use this one here, the historical board gaming piece. I'm going to use that for the heavy artillery, or advanced artillery, I guess you could call it. Just because the sculpts are different enough, right, that I think I can get away with that. You know, as long as they're different and you say, okay, this is this and this is this, it's about the numbers, right? It's not about, oh no, those guns are shooting the same. I can, you know, like, shut up. Okay, just shut up. I can do whatever I want. If they were exactly the same or too close to being the same thing, then I would say, yeah, let's go with the howitzer and then the 25-pounder. And so this is a priest self-propelled artillery, and you get that from historical board gaming as well. And that's basically an artillery that goes 2 spaces. And then this is the anti-aircraft gun, and that's from second edition. They didn't have anti-aircraft in first edition of the 40 series, Global 40. So this would be a 3.7-inch QF AA, and that would be second edition. Okay, so down in front here, we have a Humber Scout car. This is the armored car that you'll be using for the British, and you get this from historical board gaming. You get a couple of those in that set that I showed you, and then you just buy a pack of 5, so that gives you enough. And this is the cavalry. I'm not sure that you're going to use much cavalry for the UK. You might. It's just like, if you're a nation that's using a lot of boats, then you're going to be spending a lot of your money on boats, right? And you know, if it's up to me, I'm probably going to buy a tank instead of cavalry. So I think I've only got 4 of these for the UK, and I use the other one or 2 maybe for Anzac. And if I don't have enough, I'm just going to buy more. I know I've got some cavalry chips, so I can use those. And I say, oops, my bad, and I'll buy more, right? But a pack of these would be fine for you. And this is from the Global War 1936 base set that was recently released. Okay, so moving on to the tanks. This is actually both first and second edition. Got to move the camera over. Both first and second edition came out with this tank. This is the Matilda tank, and that will be your medium tank. And then this one here, this is the JS2 medium tank, and that's from 1941. Not a great sculpt. Like, the only reason I'll be using any of the 1941 tank sculpts, and I've got them for all the nations, is if I run out of these, and that's not likely, because you get double these things, right? Because you got Pacific 40 and you've got Global 40, and who knows, you might even have bought historical board gaming Valentine tanks, which look exactly like this tank over here, only smaller. This is your heavy tank over here. This is a Churchill heavy tank, and that's a historical board gaming piece. And this one here, you get, this is the tank destroyer. What kind is that? I think that's a Hellcat. Yeah, it's called a Hellcat tank destroyer, and you get two of those in that set that I was showing you at the beginning of the video. So if you buy 2 sets of those, then that's probably going to be good enough for you. You can see the slight difference in color between this and this, you know, between these pieces. This is the paint that I found for the UK, like to paint my custom infantry. So that's really close. I didn't have to paint all my pieces with the paint that I found, because the paint is close enough, and it's slightly different, but it really doesn't grate your nuts all that much. It's pretty damn close. So the last thing, and this would have been painted as well, this is the A39 Tortoise heavy tank, and I love this sculpt. This is one of my favorite sculpts that I own. This is a super heavy tank. This is what I was using for heavy tanks for my Axis and Allies. Like, I had a house rule with heavy tanks, and that's what I was using. There's a video on the website, like a link to a video on the historical board gaming website that shows these tanks, and the turret on top, it doesn't swivel. If you wanted to shoot somebody over there, you have to turn the whole tank over there. You have to turn the whole tank back. Like, they were very slow. I think they only made 3 of them, and they never did make it off the island, the UK there, because they were just so friggin' heavy. Like, you couldn't you couldn't use them on most bridges, right? It would just collapse the bridge. Well, I mean, if a bridge was a nicely built permanent bridge, but there wasn't a lot of those left in the war, right? Like, bridges got blown up and temporary bridges got slapped up, and a heavy tank just wasn't conducive, or a super heavy tank just wasn't conducive to moving across those big heavy bridges, right? So factories, yeah, same factories that I've been using, and like I said in earlier videos, you can use whatever factories you want, but what you want to do is make sure that you have something for a major factory and something for a minor factory. And then we've got E-bars. This is where there's the Big Ben clock. So this is the Parliament buildings in London. So I'm going to put that in London, and if I seem to run out of space, then I'm going to get rid of the victory cities. So there's that. And let's just go over here. So this is the FEC over here, and they're using all the pieces that I showed you, except for the custom infantry. They will use the other infantry as well, like the Marines and the Airborne and all that, if they ever get enough money to buy them. You do not get very much money as the FEC. I've been watching videos online, especially from the Hilltop Pillbox, and these guys are really strapped for cash, so that you don't get to purchase a lot for them. But I'm using these are Gurkhas, and what they were East Indian troops. So they would have been colonial infantry, basically. Like, I think they were Burmese, and there's Burma right next to Calcutta, over like Bengal and then Burma. But I think that's what Gurkhas were Burmese troops. And so that's what I use for the FEC. It's just a little way of, just adding more units to the game, making it, I think, cooler anyway. So let's get into the planes. Now, I have quite a few planes. In that set I showed you, there was 2 fighters, right? That you got with that thing, and so you add that to your Axis and Allies, and all of a sudden you've got lots of fighters. Like here is the Spitfire that you're used to. That's in the Axis and Allies game. And then the next one we have there is the P-40 Warhawk. Um, all the fighters fight the same. Like they're not different numbers for any of them. It's just I've got different fighters, just like for variety, just like with the Gurkhas. So the P-40 Warhawk, and then we've got the Hurricane fighter, and the last one is the P-51 Mustang. So all four of those, and then over here we have, these are your tactical bombers. So the first one there is an Avenger torpedo boat or torpedo bomber, but it's a tactical bomber. And the second one, and so this is a historical board gaming piece, and you get two of these. The only reason I have this one is because you get two of them with the set, so I actually have four of them, right? And I bought these sets for the Americans as well, so I've got these in with the Americans. And then there's the Mosquito. The Mosquito comes out of the Global 40, both of them, the Pacific and Europe, and that was in first and second edition, the Mosquito. Actually, these Mosquitoes, I've watched a video on these things, and they're pretty cool. Like, they were made out of wood. They were trying to make a bomber go faster, and so that's what they found. They made these things out of wood instead of metal, and they were revolutionary. Like they could literally fly. Not that any other plane couldn't. Okay, so then we have the B-25 medium bomber, and you get a couple of those in this set. So if you buy two sets, that gives you four, and then you buy a set of five, and there you go, right? And then the C-46 transport plane. Again, you get two of those in one of those sets, so that would be four of those. That might be enough, I think, if you have four of them. And then this is the strategic bomber from the Axis and Allies games, Global 40. And that's a Halifax bomber. That's what that's called. And then this one, I really like this one. This is a really nice one. This is, you buy these in a set of five for $3.45. That's and you'll find that in the battle pieces. That's a Sterling heavy bomber. So if you develop heavy bomber technology, then that's what you'll be using. And I didn't buy a whole set of them for the Anzac. What I'm going to do if that ever happens, and I don't envision being able to buy a bomber with the Anzac, because like the FEC, the Anzac is going to be really strapped for cash. And so I probably won't, even if I develop that technology, I probably won't buy any heavy bombers with that, because tactical bombers are not the same in this game as they are in Global 40. Like, they don't go into regular combat. They don't go in and destroy ships. They don't go in and shoot at tanks and everything. They do carpet bombing, but that's only one round, and they don't roll. Like in Axis and Allies, you roll at a 4, right? Well, they don't go in and roll 4s and kill everybody and then leave. They're greatly reduced. I think they only roll a 2 or something. We'll get into that when we get into the rules. I've been mostly focusing on putting the game together and getting the room together. But carpet bombing is much less than regular bombing. And so the Anzac, buying heavy bombers for these guys, they need a factory to bomb. They'd have to fly all the way up to Japan over there just to bomb a factory. Otherwise, they're no good for anything, right? So that's probably not something that they're going to use anyway. And if they did buy one, I'll just take one of the British ones and I'll give it to them, right? Because they all go at the same time anyway. Like, Anzac doesn't take a separate turn from the British like they do in Global 40. You move all your units at once. So you can move some Anzac troops in, and some FEC troops in, and some UK troops in, and you can attack somebody all at once from all three of your Commonwealth partners. So anyway, let's move on. This is a jet fighter. This is the Meteor jet fighter. That's from the America game. And the America game, the America pieces, the green ones, are not necessarily all American pieces. In fact, the Meteor was a British jet fighter, and so it's not a stretch to be taking that fighter out of there and painting it tan color and using it as a UK jet fighter, right? But again, you have to develop jet fighter technology in order to be able to use that. And then this is a 3D printed piece, so you can go to the 3D printed pieces in the battle pieces section, and then it directs you to Shapeways, and you buy it off of Shapeways. You don't actually buy it from Historical Board Gaming, you get it from Shapeways. So you can either go directly to Shapeways, or you can I think you can order it through Historical Board Gaming. Okay, so let's get into the boats. Battleships. I got a couple of those battleships because these little battleships here, what these are, here, let me just flip my page here. What they are is a Nevada class early war battleship. So they probably left over from the First World War, or built at the end of the First World War. I'm not sure, but they're going to be old battleships, and they needed to update them, so they built new ones. And so these are the Royal Oak class, and these are the Nevada class. So these would be your newer battleships, and you can buy a different class of battleship, 5 for $3.45 at Historical Board Gaming. I can't remember what the name of them are. But they're really nice sculpts as well, so you can buy those. And then as far as carriers go, that's the Illustrious class carrier. Actually, no, that's not the Illustrious class. That is, shit, I don't remember. I don't have it written down. But this is a 3D printed one. So if you remember, like if you go to the 3D printed section, the battle shapes, and you go to British, that's what this is. But you know, like what I found with these ones, they're not that much nicer than the ones you get from Axis and Allies. They're a little bit nicer. Like if you were to do the painting with a tiny little brush and everything, then they probably would be nicer. But if you're just like me and you're just using them to put a plane on, then they're not a huge step up from the regular carriers. So I don't know what the name of that one is, sorry. I wrote down the wrong one. Okay, but this I know is this is the Casablanca class escort carrier, and that's that. This one's not a capital ship. You can only put one plane on these, not two, and they're not and they're cheaper. So these would be handy. And then all of these pieces here, these are Axis and Allies pieces. This one here is the only one that's a 1941 piece. That would be the U-class sub. The other ones are pieces that you've probably been playing with for years in your Axis and Allies game. Like there's the County class cruiser and can't pronounce that. Saumarez class destroyer, the Truculent class sub, and the Liberty transport ship. And then here we are. These are the torpedo boat destroyer and coastal submarine that I'm using. You can buy Historical Board Gamings from their set, their new set, Global War 36 base set, but you have to buy them 5 at a time. With these, I've counted them up, you only need 2 apiece, and that's all you're going to need, because you can't buy them unless they change the rules. And I know they're changing the rules, but unless they add some of these when they're changing the rules, you do not need more than 2 torpedo boat destroyers or 2 coastal submarines, and you don't need any for the Anzac. Like Anzac only gets a couple boats to start the game off with, and so if you can't buy them, then you're never going to have an Anzac coastal sub or an Anzac torpedo boat destroyer. And these things that they're much less powerful. They only move 1 space, I think, but you can actually put these things on a train. So you can put it on a train on one side of France over there, and train it across to the other side, or you can spend a few turns sailing it around. So you know, they're actually smaller than regular subs, and you don't get that from looking at this sculpt. That's the one thing that you don't get from that. It is a World War One sub, but the other ones that you can buy from Historical Board Gaming, if you've seen my German video, it looked a lot smaller. Well, that's what all of the coastal submarines look like. They were a lot smaller. So let's get over here and take a look at Anzac, and we'll just go through what is different with Anzac. Everything is pretty much the same as what it was. You got your Mosquito Bomber and your Spitfire. This is different. This is, what is that? That's a Bristol Beaufort tactical bomber. It's almost indistinguishable from the Mosquito when you're looking at it. It's got a bit more of headroom in here than it looks like with this one. This is the transport plane, and like you use the short Sunderland. Shit, sorry, I got distracted by something in my computer. That's the short Sunderland seaplane there. What else? What else is different? Okay, so I probably, if I do develop heavy artillery, then I am going to use these. These were from first edition, the howitzer, and then these were from the second edition. Those were the BL 5.5 inch artillery. So these I will use for heavy artillery. I think though what I'm going to do, because you'll hardly be using any Anzac pieces, I'm just going to use these. And then if I develop heavy artillery, then I'll replace these with these on the board. And then when I buy heavy artillery, then I'll put these on. So I'll use these normally, but then they will become heavy artillery after I switch them out. So they do have Churchill heavy tanks. Everything is the same. What I noticed when I was putting the pieces out here was that I didn't have any scout cars. So I'm going to have to paint this scout car up. I'm only going to have one. Like I think I only have one. Oops. I only have one motorized infantry and a few mechanized infantry, a few of these. You don't need a ton of them because you're not going to buy that many. Like you're not going to fill up the board with Anzac, right? And if you do, well, then just get some more, right? So they have their own custom infantry, and I have two different sets. One of them, this is a World War I set that I recently got, and then I've had these ones for a while. This was a World War II set of them, or is that, I don't know. They look almost the same, so I can't see why I couldn't use the World War I set. Now with the militia, like everybody, it's the out of box, but this was the first edition out of box. And all they did was they took the British sculpt and they made it gray. And so I'm just going to use this guy for the Anzac militia. And then the second edition guy, the guy with the wicked ass cowboy hat, I'm going to make him into a Marine. And then I've got the airborne that you've got for the British, and I've got the mountain infantry that you have for the British as well. So that's the only difference in the dudes there. And the ships are all the same except for this one. I think this is a mono-Y transport. It looks like what it looks like is the QE, and that's what they use those luxury liners for, was for troop transport. So that might be exactly what that is, you know. And then all the other ships are the same class of boats and everything. And if I had second edition, then they would all be different. But because I have first edition pieces, they are all the same as the British pieces. And I'm looking around, and that's it. There's nothing special about the Anzac, like here where you had the colonial infantry. There's nothing special about the Anzac. They don't have any wicked ass weapons or anything like that. Like there is the Dutch down here, the Dutch islands, and when you go to war with Japan, then you divvy up these Dutch islands between the three factions, the FEC and the Anzac and the UK. So you can give all the money to one of them, or half the money, or you can split them up three ways, or you can do whatever you want. But other than that, there's really no special rules when it comes to Anzac. I guess the one thing that is different, and I shouldn't even be getting into this right now about rules and stuff, but you could actually build a major factory down here. You can't build a major factory in FEC because that is part of the UK, and that is not part of their home country. You can only build a major factory in your home country. You can't build it anywhere else. So the only place you could build a UK major factory is up there on that island up there in behind the box, up in the UK. And consequently, you can't build a shipyard down here. And so you won't be able to build any battleships. You won't be able to build any aircraft carriers because those are capital ships and they need to be built at a shipyard. So you won't be building any down here. You'll start with some, and you can't even repair them. I think you have to be at a shipyard to repair them as well. So I noticed, like I was watching a few weeks ago, Historical Board Gaming, they got together, all the designers of this game and the other games that they are designing, and they hashed it out. Like they had it on YouTube and you could watch it. It went on for hours, and it's still on their YouTube website, their YouTube site. You can go watch them, although it's hours and hours long. And they were debating what to do. And one of the things that they were debating is the rules for this game that are coming out next year. And they wanted to put more kinds of naval bases in. Like they wanted to put a minor naval base in so that they could repair capital ships over here. But over here, this is its own nation. So you could put a major factory on, and thusly you could put a shipyard on. But I'm telling you though, like you don't get much money with these guys. So for you to build a major factory and then a shipyard and then a battleship or something, like you might not be building any capital ships over here in Anzac in Australia. So we'll see. I'll see over years of playing this game, and who knows, like we'll see where the rules go. Plus you can make up your own rules. Like they encourage you to make up your own rules, and I've already got some in mind. I'm changing the scout cars there, the armored cars, slightly, and I'm thinking about some of the other things. I'm thinking about the technology there, what I'm going to do with that. Because I like technology, I like to add it into the game where I can. And so I like the way they have their technology. I just want to put a little bit more into the game. So that is my Commonwealth troops. Let's just step back and look at them all. That is the Commonwealth, for what it's worth. So, the largest empire the world has ever seen. Anyway, that is the end of it. So, take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.